Hi everyone, welcome to another lockdown lecture. So today I'm going to go into a bit more detail about what we record on site, how we record it, and also a little bit about why we record on site. So first things first, for those of you who've been following these lockdown lectures, you'll no doubt be very bored of me going on now about stratigraphy, context, and also how we shouldn't just rip stuff out of the ground without recording it properly. But just to reiterate it, as soon as we stick a spade, a trowel, a mattock, a JCB bucket in the ground, we're disturbing the natural state of things, that kind of equilibrium that the deposits and the pits and the post holes and the finds, that equilibrium that they all have with the surrounding soil that they're currently sitting in. And so because of this, when we excavate anything, we need to follow the principle of preservation by record. That is, anything we dig, we record as fully as possible to ensure that even though we've disturbed that beautiful equilibrium that's currently there by leaving everything alone, we're disturbing it. But when we do that, we need to retain as much information as possible, both for interpreting the site now, but also for people in the future as well. So I guess as archaeologists, we have a really big responsibility here, because by digging, we're destroying. But by recording as we go along, we're preserving as much information as possible as we can as we go. So what sort of things do we want to find out, and what sort of things do we record? Well, there's a selection of things here. It's about 1/100th of the types of things that archaeologists are interested in. I'm obviously not going to go through all of them now, but essentially as archaeologists, we're interested in the past, and in particular, we're interested in the human experience of the past. And we recover that mainly through material culture. So that is the things that, both the objects and other traces that people have left behind, essentially. Now, how do we do it? Well, we can do it in all sorts of different ways. But the majority of recording that we do as archaeologists, it traditionally involves a pen, a pencil, some paper, and probably some cameras. Now, this is all changing very rapidly as we move forward with new technologies such as tablets and GPS and photogrammetry. But essentially, all of those new techniques, they're just quicker and not always as efficient, but they're just quicker ways of recording the same basic information that we want to know. So when talking about this, one of the easiest ways to think about it is to imagine a bunch of post-it notes stuck to stuff. So everything we find, be it a fancy uniform button, an old bit of iron, or the curve of a buried roadside ditch, they all have certain bits of information about them that we want to record, right? So if we take an example here we just have a section or a profile of a cut feature. So this could be something like a ditch or a pit, and essentially with this picture, we're looking at it sideways on, as if we just slice straight down through it. So the first thing we do when we find something like this is give it a unique number, what we would call the context number. And again, there's that word context, it's really important. But this is so that when we're referring to this particular cut feature in the documentation, we can attach all of the right information to it. That number then gets written or entered, if we're doing it digitally, onto a register of all the other contexts in the site or the area, and that just basically helps us keep track of everything, that number, so everything has a unique number in the system. And then once we've got that, we can start adding further information about this cut feature or this context. Okay, so for example, we could describe its shape. Is it oval? Is it rounded? We could do its dimensions. So how long is it? What's the breadth? How deep is it? And then we could look at things like, is it truncated? So that means, is it cut by something else, or is it running up against a wall or something like that? And then of course we can put down our interpretation of it. What do we think it is? And this is the excavator's interpretation. So this is kind of at the trowel's edge, just as the excavators bring it up. They can decide what they think it is. And it may change, and interpretations change all the time, but it's important to record what we thought it was when we first excavated it. And then with our nice cut feature, our ditch or our pit, we need to record what's filling it. So if it is a pit, has it got multiple fills, i.e. if it's a pit where people dumping small amounts of stuff in it over a number of times, so over a long time, so these dumps come in layers. Are there lots of layers inside it, or is it just one big layer, so someone dug a hole and then filled it in a bit later. So all of that information, along with other sorts of attributes and information, go onto this context sheet, this paper context sheet, just like the one you can see here. We record all of that stuff along with the interpretation and some other bits, and as well as its relationship there with other contexts as well. And now we do this for the cuts, but we also do it for the fills. So what was inside that cut? Except of course with fills, we have to record different things. So a fill, we might record the compaction. Is it loose? Is it tight? Is it all squeezed in there, or is it just a loose fill? What colour is it? Quite often from the colour of a fill, you can tell, like if it's really dark and black, it's usually quite organic and, you know, exciting like that. Or it might just be, you know, a light brown fill. What's inside it? What are these inclusions? Are there bits of pottery? Are there bones, you know, flint, that kind of thing? And again, we'll record our interpretation of it. That again goes on a context sheet, just like before, except it's a slightly different one, but yeah, you get the idea. And as well as recording all of that kind of post-it note information, we'll also take lots of photographs, and we'll draw the deposit as well. And we'll also make sure that we record the spatial location, so we can tie those photographs and those plans into the overall site plan. We'll do that, you know, in the old school, we'll do it using tapes, or we might do it with the total station, or we might do it with the GPS. So again, with all of this, we're just recording as much as we can of what the archaeology actually looked like during the excavation. As once it's taken out of the ground, it's all gone forever. And each of these photos and plans, they also get individual numbers, unique numbers, so that we can keep track of them. Those numbers are then put onto the context sheets, so we can track down what photos and drawings are of what context. Again, we're building this big net of things, big network of things, photos attached, everything like that, all coming together in this big context record. Everything's linked to this context number. It's really important. So finally, all of this information that we've collected gets digitized. And as I've said earlier, sometimes this will happen straight onto the tablet in the site, so while we're digging. So some people will record directly onto a tablet, electronic tablet, rather than a piece of paper. But sometimes if we're recording on paper, then we'll digitize those afterwards. That's either by data entry or by scanning. All of these results get put into the computer, and then at Waterloo at least, they're made available immediately online using the project database called Arc. So Arc is fully accessible, fully open access. The website address is there, and it basically contains all of the basic context records, finds records, and all sorts of other stuff, all linked together. As I say, the web address is there, so please go and visit and play around, and you can explore some of the finds. So it was a very quick whistle-stop tour of how and why and what we record when we're doing archaeology. And obviously I could only talk briefly about this in such a short amount of time, but as usual, if anyone is interested in exploring it at all further, you know, you can either put a comment in the box below, or you can just contact me directly and have a chat about it. I hope that was helpful. See you the next time.